So now we are ready to get painting, and this is the bit where I start to get a little excited about what's going on. Just to sort of refresh us where we are, so that we sort of look at the whole thing from the whole perspective of it. We have given this several coats of the Steino Res, and in black, and I've let that dry. And there were a couple of places where I also included some 1200 black Mr. Surfacer, just where I thought it needed it. But you let this stuff dry, and it really sucks into the plastic. All the rivet lines are clean. I've not lost any of the detail, although this particular model was very well printed, if you can call styrene printed, but or molded, I should say, is probably a more accurate term. So I'm very, 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 very happy with it. And interestingly enough, just to sort of share with you as we're doing this, because I think it's worth it. So there is a photo that is on the web. It's at the Das Werk Underspot LSM related reviews. The military figures large scale modeler has this on their website, and I'm gonna put this on PhilCam here so that we can take a look. What's interesting about this particular photo is that you'll notice that now this is supposed to be U-12. So I don't know how different U-12 was for U-9, other than if you'll notice, it's carrying a launch plane, which I think is really curious. And there's also a couple of things that I want to point out that are interesting from this reference picture. One is that there appears to be rivets, circles of rivets. To me, there's 4 of them in the center of the boat on this U-12. They don't appear on this model. The other thing is there appears to be a pipe of some kind, or perhaps a grip place so that your feet knows where the end of the sub is. That appears to be just approximately 6 inches in from the hull, from the top side of the hull. And there also appears to be some panel lines on this that do not appear in this. The other thing is close to the gun emplacement on this boat, on the not on our kit, but on the U-12 photo. Where the gun emplacements are, the deck here bulges out slightly, and there are some looks like some keel tie-offs there. Now, I don't know a lot about the history of this. I'm going to try and do some research on it, and I'll have that on my website, which is spruverse.com, under U-9. It'll be up in about a week or so from the release of this video, because I want to do thorough research, and I want to leave it all on the website for everybody, because there'll be a few of you who really want to go crazy with this Canon wise and get some fixes done here if that's what's required. I'm basically, for those of you who are just joining us, welcome, by the way. I'm sort of doing my version of it with a sort of heightened weathering, just to add some drama to it, as if it's been sort of going around the oceans of the world for a couple of years, and the water has taken the salt water, and all of the stress and strain has taken its toll on the boat, because I think that'll look really dramatic. So far, no complications with this kit. I'll sort of show this to C camera. I have put the propeller shafts in, and I've glued them down. They went down quite quite nicely. And I have glued sort of all the little pieces for the most part together. There's a few bits and pieces that I'll put on later as we get closer to the end of this thing. The guns today are going to get a little dry brush with some gunmetal. We'll do that. And if we have time, we'll hit the propellers with a little bronze. We're also going to hit all of the dive planes with their gray. But I'm going to start with the light gray. What I intend to do is try to cover the light gray areas. Now, I'm not going to tape anything because that's going to happen when I go to my dark gray to try and get some really crisp lines. And obviously it's a lot easier to cover light than it is to cover dark. And then of course it's going to get its weathering and everything else. Now the other thing that's really interesting is if you look at this U-9 picture, and it's in black and white obviously, so it's hard to tell, but the actual paint job itself is not super crisp. You know, this sort of indicates that it was all done with a brush and a bucket, not with any kind of sprays. Obviously, this is the early 1900s, so you wouldn't have that. But anyway, very interesting, lots of fun. And I have to say, one of the things that curiously happens to me as I sort of do these sorts of things is I do start to get kind of excited and curious about their history. That's one of the great things about the hobby, I think, is you get to sort of dive into it a little bit, and that's always a lot of fun. So I'm going to put my trusty towel down in front of me here. And we will get going. We're going to start with the light gray, as I said. So, okay, we're good to go here. I have mixed up my, this is light gray from Vallejo. It's the Model Air version. It's the 71050. And I will have a complete list of all the colors that I used on the website as well. But for those of you who are following along, there is a paint chart, as we know, in the instructions, and it does give you several variations. I'm going with the Vallejo for the light, but curiously, I am following along with the call out in the build guide for the darker gray, which is the XF77 and the Tamiya. I just happen to have good luck with my Tamiya paints and my Vallejos, but you do have to you do have to obviously clean out your brush thoroughly when you're crossing over, because they don't like each other otherwise. So do make sure your brush is clean. Unfortunately, I can't use two brushes today as I'd like to, because if I wait too long between coats, these acrylics will start to dry very, very quickly. So, okay, here we go. It's straight out of the bottle. I do not thin my paints in this regard. I have my compressor set at 20 psi. I am using an Iwata Eclipse HPCS, which I have great luck with. Okay, so here we go. Away we go. I'm going to start with, well, I'll start with the center of the boat because I'm right here. But we're going to just start to add some of the light gray here. Very, 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 very light cuts, obviously. And Now, curiously, already it's kind of cool that it does start to, when you have a black primer on these things and you start to lighten it up like this, you get a really ghostly effect anyway, which I'm kind of excited about. So I think we're going to have a lot of fun with this boat. Okay, so far so good. It's looking pretty good. I will show you also on PhilCam what we're doing here. Okay, there we go. Live and in person. It's starting to spatter on me a little bit. So what I'm going to do, and again, it's probably temperature related, but I'm going to add just a little bit of flow improver here, just a drop. It won't need much. It's pretty. It's a pretty dramatic result you get. There we go. And you can see that's really working nicely. Whoa, just had a clog explosion. Okay, it's looking pretty good. Now I'm going to just carefully reposition this here, just a little bit, so that I can okay, pretty happy with that. So let me reposition her now. Well, I've got to hang on. I've got to get this first panel here. I see. I apologize. So we're going to do this first. So I'm looking for just about the first panel it appears on the reference information. Okay. Now obviously we'll come back through and give this a second coat in just a second. So what I'm going to do now is just very carefully is turn this around. There we go. And let's hit the other side here. Now it's going to be quite a stark contrast, obviously, once we get the dark gray on here, and then we go through the weathering process. But the interesting thing about this light gray is what it does do is once you actually get your panel lines cleaned up with they're all taped off, and this is really dry. You'll really get this light gray is really going to pop. And obviously this is just a first coat, right? So it's probably going to get a couple, and we'll let this, obviously we're going to let this dry really well overnight. You don't want to, you really want to make sure this is super dry, and then you really want to hit it with a flat varnish so that you're absolutely 1000% sure when you go to tape this you're not going to have any lift. Now what is interesting is there is a guideline, I think, if we want to use it. There is a there is a grid line that I think I'm going to use to retain the light gray inside of it. But getting a clean line on the bottom is going to be a little tricky, but we'll do it. We'll do it because with some good vinyl tape, probably I'm looking at quarter inch vinyl. We should get a good result, because the nice thing about the vinyl is, as opposed to paper, is we can get a more of a contoured line with it. Okay. Okay, turn this around. Okay, so my gray is in. I'm going to let this dry and then take a quick look at it and see how it's doing. And I'm gonna now set up for hitting the dive planes with the darker gray. Oh, and then we will dry brush the guns. Okay, so got the dark going here, and this will be the final color for all the dive planes, except that the edges of the top dive planes are all going to get striped off with the light gray. And what I'm wondering is during the war in reality, did that actually stay on the dive planes? And what function did it have? I don't know. Did it allow them to see if the planes were chipped or broken? Or is it just a detail? I don't know. Now when it comes to bronzing the propellers, what I will do is once they're bronzed, I will clear coat them with a little bit of the Tamiya Orange Clear, because it's amazing what it does, how it affects the metal, and it'll give it a really interesting metal sheen to it. And then we can always dull it down with a little matte spray if we want to. So that's it. All of the light spots are in. I'm going to do a panel here and see what we get. Yeah, it is a nice contrast. It's really interesting how the light plays on it. But I can tell you that's quite dramatic. And I will add some different textures and tones as well on some of the panels as we get closer to doing a lot more of the finer details in the finishing of it. But there you go. So that's the first coat of the light gray and the first coat of the dark gray. We're going to let all this dry and then we will hit it again. After we have done that, we're going to let that dry thoroughly overnight. I'm going to hit it with a matte varnish so that I protect what I've actually painted. We'll give that several hours to dry. And then in what will be a magic second for you guys, will probably be another day, and we'll get all this taped off, and we'll go about getting our dark gray on the rest of the boat, and then it should start to look really snazzy. I also will do a little thinking about this dark gray just to see whether or not I want to take it down just a hair. I may want to add just a little drop of black to it. I'm going to experiment with that. Okay, so until we meet again, be safe, be well, build something, guys, and we'll carry on with the next episode of Build the U-9. We are getting dangerously close. Take care, everybody.